You ever have one of those moments where you say something, and the second it leaves your mouth, you already regret it? Like the air changes, the room gets heavy, and you just know you've crossed a line you can't uncross. That happened to me with my dad. And to be honest, I didn't think it would go the way it did. Let me take you back. It was a Sunday afternoon. I remember that clearly. The kind of lazy Sunday where the whole house just feels a little quieter, a little slower. My mom was out with her sister, and it was just me and my dad in the house. We weren't close. I mean, we lived together, but we didn't really talk. Not deeply. We had that typical father-son distance. Polite, functional, but kind of hollow underneath. Growing up, my dad was strict. Not cruel, just hard. He came from that old school background, the don't show emotion generation. His love showed up as fixing things around the house, or making sure we had food on the table, not so much with hugs or, "I'm proud of you." And as I got older, I started carrying this quiet resentment. Like he never really saw me. Like I was just passing through his life, instead of actually being a part of it. So, that Sunday, he was sitting in the kitchen, drinking his usual cup of black coffee, reading the paper like it was 1975. And I don't know what got into me, but something just boiled over. I'd been carrying all this weight, all these old emotions that I never talked about. And I decided, right there, I was going to say something. I was going to call him out. I sat down across from him and just said, I said, "You know, you were never really there for me." He didn't even look up, just kept reading. So I said it again, louder this time. "You were never really there. You never asked about how I felt or what I wanted. You just barked orders and assumed that was parenting." And that's when he slowly folded his paper, looked up at me, and there it was. That look. Not angry, not sad, just unreadable. But I could feel it. I'd crossed the line. And I knew it. He stood up, didn't say a word, walked over to the sink and started washing his cup. And I just sat there, heart pounding, wondering if I'd messed everything up. I expected him to yell, or argue, or maybe say something cutting like he always did when we fought. But instead, he said something I didn't expect. He said, "Do you really think I didn't care?" That's it. No yelling, no defense, just that one question. And it hit me harder than anything I'd heard in years. I didn't know how to respond. I just looked at him, suddenly unsure of everything I thought I knew. He turned off the water, dried his hands, and leaned against the counter. And then, for the first time in a long time, he talked. He told me about growing up in a house where love was never spoken, where showing emotion was a weakness. About how his own dad never said "I love you" even once. He said that every time he put food on the table, fixed the leaky faucet, or worked extra hours, that was him trying to show love the only way he knew how. He said, "I didn't know how to say it, so I tried to do it. But I see now, maybe that wasn't enough." That moment, it cracked something open in me. I always thought my dad was cold, distant. But maybe he was just scared. Scared of being vulnerable. Scared of not being the man he thought he had to be. And maybe I never gave him the space to be human. I said, "I didn't mean to hurt you. I've felt invisible for a long time." He nodded. "I know, and I'm sorry. I didn't know how to reach you." We sat in silence for a long time after that. Not awkward silence, just space. Space for things to settle. And you know what's strange? It didn't fix everything. It didn't magically erase all the years of misunderstanding. But it was a start. A messy, uncomfortable, but real beginning. Over the next few weeks, we started talking more. Not big, deep therapy-style conversations, but little things. Small check-ins. Watching old games together. Sitting on the porch without saying a word. But there was warmth now. Presence. Looking back, I realize I crossed the line that day not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I wanted to be seen. I wanted my dad to really see me. And in doing that, I finally saw him too. Not the version I built in my head, but the flawed, trying, complicated man he really was. Sometimes the things that get out of control are the very things that needed to be shaken up. Our relationship had been frozen in silence for years. And yeah, that Sunday afternoon lit a fire. But maybe we needed the burn. Maybe we needed that mess to finally make room for something honest. And I share this not to say, here's how to fix everything with your dad. Every relationship is different. But I think there's something universal in what happened that day. Sometimes we carry pain in silence because we're afraid. Afraid of rocking the boat. Afraid of being misunderstood. Afraid of not getting the answer we want. But silence doesn't heal anything. It just buries it deeper. That day, I learned that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes courage is sitting at the kitchen table and saying something that might break everything wide open, and trusting that maybe, just maybe, something better can grow in its place. If you're listening to this and there's someone in your life you've grown distant from, maybe a parent, a sibling, a friend, I hope you'll think about starting the conversation. Not perfectly, not with a script, but with honesty. Because crossing the line isn't always a mistake. Sometimes it's the beginning. Thanks for listening. If this touched something in you, share it with someone who needs it. And maybe take that step. You never know what could be waiting on the other side of an honest conversation. After that conversation, something strange happened to me. I started to remember things I hadn't thought about in years. Not the arguments or the disappointments, but the quiet moments. The time he stayed up with me when I had that awful flu in middle school. How he used to check if my car had enough gas in it before I left for school. The time he waited outside in the rain until my bus came, and he never even mentioned it. All these things that I used to overlook. Or maybe I just didn't know how to recognize them as love back then. It's funny how memory works. When you're angry, it filters everything through a lens. You only remember what confirms your story. He didn't care. He never tried. He didn't listen. But after we talked, that filter changed, and I started seeing the full picture. But here's the thing. They don't tell you how hard it is to heal. Not the dramatic kind of healing. I'm talking about the quiet, ongoing, ordinary healing. The kind where you sit in your room and process a moment over and over again. The kind where you try to forgive someone for being human. A few weeks after our talk, I found myself going into his garage one afternoon. He was in there doing what he always did, messing with tools, fixing something that probably didn't need fixing, and I stood there watching him for a minute, just thinking. He looked up and said, "You want something?" And I just blurted it out. "Can I help you?" That might not sound like much, but in our world, that was huge. Offering to help meant being with him. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. And I could see it on his face. He was surprised, not in a big dramatic way. Just that small flicker in the eyes when someone feels seen. So we worked in silence for a while. I handed him wrenches. He taught me how to change out a part on an old mower, and I remember thinking, this is what I missed all those years. Not just his approval, but his presence. And then he said something I didn't expect. He said, "You know, I used to dream about taking you fishing, just never thought you wanted to go." I didn't know what to say. I don't even like fishing. But it hit me. All these years, both of us had been waiting on each other, waiting for the other one to go first, to reach out, to show up. And in that waiting, we lost years. I said, "I would have gone, if you'd asked." And he smiled, just barely. Guess I should have. There was no big emotional breakdown, no hug and cue the movie soundtrack, just that moment. Honest. Quiet. Real. And from that day on, things changed. Not overnight. He still had his grumpy mornings, still didn't say much unless it was about fixing something or the news. But he started asking how I was doing. He started listening, and I started giving him grace. I stopped expecting him to be this perfect version of a father I'd built in my head, and started accepting the man who was right in front of me. You know, It's easy to judge our parents. We look back and highlight all the ways they messed up, all the things they didn't say or do. But sometimes, they were just doing the best they could with what they were taught. They didn't get a manual. They didn't have YouTube videos about emotional intelligence and parenting styles. They had survival and silence and pride. But here's the truth. Healing doesn't mean pretending everything was okay. It means understanding where the cracks came from, and then deciding you're not going to pass them on. One day, months later, I was at a family barbecue, and I overheard my dad talking to one of my cousins. He said, "My son, he's a good man. I didn't always know how to say it, but I'm proud of him." He didn't know I was listening, but I heard it, and I'll never forget it. That sentence, it did something. It closed this old wound inside me that I didn't even realize was still open. I thought back to younger me, the kid who used to wait for his dad to clap at his school performance, the teenager who wanted a good job after getting into college, the man who just wanted to be seen, not for accomplishments, but just for being. And in that one sentence, he gave it to me. Now here's what I've learned. Sometimes crossing the line is necessary, not to hurt someone, but to break the silence, to make space for something deeper. We get one shot at these relationships, and yes, some people are too toxic, too hurtful, and need distance. But some just need the door cracked open. They need someone to say, "I'm hurt, but I'm willing to talk. I'm angry, but I still care. I don't know how this ends, but I want to start somewhere." And that's what I did. I crossed the line, not to destroy something, but to rebuild it. If you're sitting on a pile of unsaid things, ask yourself, what are you afraid of? That they won't understand? That you'll cry? That you'll open something you can't close? I was afraid of all of that too. But I'd rather deal with the discomfort of healing than live with the weight of regret. Because that's the real danger. Regret. It grows roots. It takes up space in your chest. It follows you. It shows up in the way you love other people, the way you talk to your kids, the way you handle conflict. Unspoken pain becomes a pattern. But spoken pain has a chance to turn into connection. Now, my dad and I, we're not perfect. We still argue. He still thinks I take too long to check my oil. I still roll my eyes when he tells the same story, for the 100th time. But now there's love behind the frustration. There's respect behind the silence. And there's grace where there used to be distance. I'll leave you with this. Don't wait forever to say what needs to be said. Don't assume people know how you feel. Don't let pride cost you a relationship that could still be healed. Sometimes, all it takes is one hard conversation, one honest moment, one Sunday afternoon where you finally stop pretending and just speak. Because even if things get messy, even if they get out of control for a while, that mess might be exactly what your story needs. It was for mine. Thanks for being here with me. If this reminded you of someone, maybe today's the day to reach out. Be the first to speak. And who knows, maybe everything will change.